Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I am facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups on the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We can also be found on Facebook under Seattle Law of One study group. We do meet on Zoom twice a week from Tuesdays, 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, as well as 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our group or to join our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested is welcome to join. We do also have a YouTube channel where we have recordings of previous Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty and Austin and Trish Bean and Gary Bean. If you click on any of those videos down below the video, you'll see a list of topics and timestamps. I encourage everyone to browse through the library and find something that speaks to you or resonates with you at that particular nexus and space-time and time-space. Otherwise, today we are blessed again to be joined by our good friends Austin Bridges and Gary and Trish Bean for some informal conversation and questions and answers about the law of one and how to live it. How are you guys doing today?
Hello, doing great. It's amazing to be here. It's an honor, as always. Thank you so much for inviting us to join you in this space that you hold so well, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This is always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we love seeing you, friend, and appreciate all that you do for this community. And yeah, it's a fun time to be here and grateful.
Nice. Much appreciate your being here. I know you were doing a Q&A with Daniel Hodak and the Law of One Europe group yesterday. Got to watch a little bit of it. Looked wonderful as always, and we are always delighted to make connections with our friends in Europe and everywhere around the globe. And appreciate your being here today and doing another one. I did want to note that the last time we did a Q&A, I believe, was back in August. And the last time got to see you in person was at the Coming Home to a New Earth event in Seabeck, Washington, along with quite a few folks on the Zoom call, I believe, that you will recognize. Just wanted to ask if you had any thoughts, reflections on that event, as well as the other gatherings that you've done in Prague and Louisville in the past year.
How about the event manager?
Yeah, 2023 was amazing event-wise. I don't know if we've mentioned it before, but this event in October in Washington State was our first time having an event west of the Mississippi. So it was like breaking new ground. And we only got there 15 minutes before the first attendee arrived. So went into it quite blind, if you will, but it turned out beautifully. It was an amazing campus and an amazing collection of souls, which, like you mentioned, many on the call today were present. It was just an incredible experience. And I always feel super grateful to witness people connect spiritually and even just in presence. Sorry if you just heard some noises. My dog just like snorted off camera.
It's a love snort.
I love snort. I'll leave the other events to you all to share about.
Yeah, we are grateful to somebody on the call who at the last minute or who had received the binders and put them together for us for the event at home. That's one Jonathan Tong.
And in like truly
Ready.
like perfect Washington experience, had a ferry issue.
Yeah. Missed the ferry, got there about an hour late. Yeah.
It was perfect. Right. It worked out fine.
Yeah, it was a super wonderful gathering, and I really much appreciate all the hard work that you put into doing that, Trish, as well as all the other gatherings that you've done as events coordinator. Gary, Austin, did you have any thoughts, reflections to share, perhaps on the Seabeck gathering?
Just a quick thought that I would like to share, and it's such an honor for us to be able to witness, as Trish was saying, witness seekers coming together. And it's really the reason that we hold these events is to provide an opportunity for people who resonate with the law of one, who think that they're wanderers, and who just, have a like mindset to come together. And it's such an amazing experience to watch people be able to talk about something that they can't normally talk about in their personal lives. And it's such a, we witness it every time, an immediate connection. People finally feel free. And it's one of the reasons that we do this. And it's just such an honor to be part of that. And it's really, why I appreciate the events personally. It's being able to take part in creating that space and being able to witness it.
Much appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would emphasize this space holding because that's our primary function. We at LL Research, we build the container and we hold the space. And that is, and we channel, of course, and offer various services, but that is, our key function. Otherwise, it is about seekers coming together with other seekers. And like Austin was indicating, there are a lot of Law of One students who don't have anybody to share in their lives with. Yari's on the call, and I remember him just describing about how this is the first time I've talked with other people so openly about the Law of One, and it's and people just come alive in that environment and they find home. And you hear, like, if you created a word cloud of all the words that are said in an event, you would see big and bolded words of gratitude and home and belonging and love, etc. And it's an alchemical magic that happens, and it uplifts and energizes us as well. So grateful. And in this particular event, we got to arrive a day early, and Jonathan Tong, gave us a tour of Seattle. It was great to spend some time with you as well, Jonathan.
It's always a joy to see you guys. Yeah, and I think that's something that probably heard most often at that event as well, that the chance to, one, just have these conversations with people, since most of us don't really have others in our social circles or families that we can talk about any of this stuff with, is great. But even meeting in person, face to face, is a really beautiful thing that is, yeah, different from discussions on Facebook pages or on Zoom meetings or something like that. So really much appreciated. And that's probably a good opportunity to remind folks that if you go to the L&L Research website and click on Connect, there is a whole list of study groups all over the world. And if you click on North America, you'll see there are quite a few study groups that meet both in person and online. Every group has a different vibe with a different group of people there, different facilitators. And if you are looking for some people, kindred spirits to connect with, cannot recommend them enough. Otherwise, go ahead, Gary.
Interjection. Speaking of, you, Jonathan, recently, after years of hosting this digital Seattle Law of One study group, you had an in-person meeting for the first time. And I would, if there's time and if you're interested and available, I would enjoy hearing about that before this meeting is over.
It was super fun. It was almost all folks who were at CBEC, who lived within driving distance of Seattle. Some folks were within an hour's drive, but some folks like Yari were coming from Canadian border or over the Canadian border. Our friend Eddie drove all the way from Ellensburg, which is a good 2-hour drive east of Seattle. So yeah, we had about a dozen folks, and it was nice. We just had a lot of informal time, just kind of hanging out. It was more like a after party than like a study session in particular. So many good times were had. We appreciate.
Do you think that you'll make it a regular thing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we don't have another one scheduled at this time, but we do have a email group set up. So I think once the holidays pass and things get a little bit less busy, I think there are folks who were not able to join us this last time who would love to join us again. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
A final quick question, if you don't mind. What would you say is the difference between an in-person meetup, even though, like you said, this was more of an after party, it wasn't a study focus session per se, but the digital space versus the in-person space? Do you have any thoughts?
I think our friend Eddie said it best. He just says he just doesn't get the same energy, the same vibe from a Zoom meeting, even though you can see somebody's face on the screen and you can still hear the voice and the tone of voice and all that stuff. Somehow just being physically in space time in the same room with people and having that conversation just feels energetically different. I imagine you probably feel the same way about the in-person gatherings as opposed to Zoom meetings.
Oh, for sure. It is incredible the intimacy that can still be fostered over Zoom and the connections and the friendships and but yeah, there is no real substitute for coming together, like you said, in space time.
Indeed.
But thanks
Maybe
for
you have a follow-up question in the chat window. Did you want to unmute your mic, Mimi, and ask your question? It's about the gatherings.
Yeah. So it's like I'm actually interested in the mechanics of that energetically and consciousness, how it is when we come together, what's happening and why is it different in person? So to your question.
It's a good question. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Gary or Trish or Austin?
Speculative thoughts. One, our own energy field, extends so far, and the closer in proximity one is to another's energy field, the more those two fields are literally interacting with one another, exchanging, so long as the heart is open, exchanging mutually enhancing energy. And in person, you're getting so many more cues about the person, from the sound of their voice to the way their body is embodying and communicating what they're feeling, what they're thinking, how they are relating to you in that dance of give and take, most of which happens below the surface and outside of the spoken words. So I think that plays into it. I'm sure there's other factors.
Any thoughts, Tricia or Austin?
Austin, would you like to go?
Yeah, I agree completely with what Gary said, and I think there's something about these events in particular. They're pretty quick, and so there's not a lot of time for the group to start having a bunch of disharmonies, which I think is actually a positive thing. But if a group comes together for more than a few days, then you have to work some things out. But life is just so hard, and so when we come together, we kind of generate this really bright flash of light that I think really energizes everybody on a very metaphysical, real level, where it sort of infuses everybody in a way that just helps them to let it ripple out when they go back to their normal lives. And I think that is an important aspect. Is events can have different purposes. We could get together and do really intense work in consciousness that requires a lot of like dealing with catalyst and stuff, or we could get together and celebrate and thrive on each other's energies. And I think that's sort of what these events are more for, is to be able to sort of celebrate each other. And I think that's such a necessary thing that's missing in modern life that I really appreciate about these events.
Yeah, to me, maybe it seems like the metaphor of doing the Gaia meditations where everybody is in fact doing it at the same time versus at different times. In some sense, I'm sure it's the same energy, as I believe I've heard Quo say at some point. And in some respects, I suppose it's different too. Hey, I appreciate the question, and I did want to ask another question on a different subject, if you don't mind. And I did want to remind folks on the Zoom call, if you do have a question that you'd like to ask, please make sure that you go ahead and put it in the chat window, and I will be looking there and probably doing the questions in order. Otherwise, I had a question that I think might be a little bit of a deep dive and might take a little while. And I guess I will just introduce it by saying this is a question about a session that I asked Jim about a couple months ago in October, one that he had written about in his Camelot journal. One that has to do with exactly who and where is the entity known as Quo. He was a little puzzled by it, was a little mystified by it. He said he would bring it up with Austin, and he said he shared that facet with Austin, and he would think about it. And Austin, I don't know if you know what session I'm referring to, and I don't know if Gary or Trish have read this yet. but it's been on my mind and it's been bugging me a little bit for the last couple months or so. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do a screen share, and I would just kind of like to read through it together and ask the three of you to offer your thoughts, reflections on it as we go. So let me go ahead and bring this up. So there's a fair bit to read, and I apologize in advance. We're going to read through a fair bit of this session together because I think there's so much to reflect on and meditate, or reflect on. And it was from October 17th, 1988. The question for this session, I can only assume, was coming from Carla, who was asking, who are the entities that speak through our instruments that allows them to come in the name of Jesus the Christ? What is the nature of their makeup that allows them to do this? I'm reading from a document that I've got on this because there were some parts that I wanted to highlight in particular. So I'm skipping a little bit ahead to Quo's response, where they said, "We have been waiting for this opportunity to speak upon our identity for some time, as this instrument would say. We even gave our group a name which compassed the query which this instrument is to this instrument is crucial. That is, that as this instrument has noted with its intellectual mind previously, our name in the language you call Latin means literally who. You wish to know why we of the Confederation of Planets and the service of the infinite creator can pass the challenge of the Christ and can say to you, Jesus is Lord. You wish to know what relationship we have to Christ. That which we have to say is both that which is desired and that which is not. Yet our nature is such that it is bound to disappoint each, that is, the intellectual and the faithful. We shall begin with our identity as manifestations. We are citizens of various planetary groups which have attained thought communication and are therefore able to communicate without the language barrier. This ability to share concepts is fundamental to the Confederation. In the terms of your illusion, we live, have our various physical vehicles, and remain at this stage of our growth individualized, but aware and harmonized with those within the group especially, and by careful extension, all those of the Confederation. Each of us has our own areas of specialization. Some wish to speak to introductory students, some the intermediate, some the advanced, and some those of any level in a certain area of inquiry, such as healing. And I think I just wanted to pause there at that point for a little bit of context. As I recall, the last channeling of Ra happened in March of 1984. The first channeling of Quo, as far as I can tell, was almost 2 years later, in January of 1986. The first mention that Ra was in fact part of the principle known as Quo, as far as I can tell, was about 4 years after that, in 1990. So I guess this would have been the part, as Jim noted, that Quo could have said at some point that they were in fact comprised of Ra and Latwi and Hatan, and at that part, for whatever reason, chose not to do that. Do you have any thoughts, reflections on anything at this point, Austin or Gary or Trish? Gary or Trish, have you seen this session? Are you familiar with this session?
You've seen this session?
Well, no, we talked about this because Jim ended up bringing up this particular session prior to a channeling that we did.
Oh yeah, Jim, in our round robin before the channelings, Jim shared it as part of his sharing. And then I didn't read Jim's Camelot journal either, but Austin mentioned it too. Austin relayed the conversation.
Oh, interesting. Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad that you have seen this before. Austin, do you have any thoughts on anything up to this point before we continue on? I guess I'm reading more for the benefit of those who have not seen this session before.
Yeah, I do have some thoughts. Like when we get to the end of what is the more puzzling aspect of this channeling, I wrote a pretty long email to Jim about my thoughts. Then when we get there, I think the easiest way for me to reflect on it would be to just read what I wrote to Jim. At this point, the only thing I would really reflect on is to point out that Kuo says specifically here that they have three sort of it. Kuo specifically three aspects to themselves. They wish to speak to introductory, intermediate, and advanced. So like they're already establishing this sort of archetype of this three levels that they want to speak to.
Indeed. Thank you. Yeah, and for folks who are watching this, perhaps who are new to the Law of One or the conscious channeling archives, it took me a while to realize that Ra was in fact part of Kuo. I was reading a lot of references to this entity known as Kuo on Law of One Facebook pages, and I kept wondering, wow, who is this Kuo person, and why are they so verbose, for one thing, and I didn't even realize there was a connection. So in case, for folks who don't realize, Austin, would you like to share with folks, like, what is the relationship between Kuo and Ra?
Yeah, so eventually, as you were talking about, Kuo identified themselves as an amalgamation or collection of three social memory complexes, Hatan of the fourth density, Latui of the fifth density, and Ra of the sixth density. And that has always, the way that Carla and Jim always talked about that is it was a way for Ra to be able to take part in the conscious channelings without having to have Carla go into trance. So it wasn't going to be nearly as precise or have the same quality as the raw contact, but it was still a way for them to contribute their energies and their perspective.
Which is a really beautiful thing. I know it often comes up. People ask, are you guys ever going to channel Ra again? And I think the short answer is we're already channeling Ra. We've been doing it like a couple of times a month since 1986 all the way up to present day. So in a somewhat different form, but yeah, for sure. Appreciate your sharing that. If it's okay with you, let me go ahead and read on and we can get to the puzzling part. And yes, I would love to have you read your email on that. Let's see, they say, we are those which seek the purer or more experienced channel with the aim of producing philosophically based inspirational material. The contact with this group has been rewarding for us, and we rejoice in the love of the one infinite creator, which binds each to the creator and to one another. This is our manifestation. It is, like all manifestations, a mask and an illusion, real in a manner of speaking, but of a limited duration. Such is the nature of manifestation. By its very nature, it calls to infinity. They go on to talk a little bit about their relationship to Christ. And I think in the interest of time, I will skip on a little bit. They do say we come from a Christ that worships, from a race which worships the Christ in a somewhat different way, having, however, the understanding, if we may use that term, that the agent of redemption, be it the Christ principle, or such a one as Jesus the Christ, is indeed Lord and one with the Father and Creator, Mother and Nurturer of all that there is. You say, we do not mean to demean this instrument's religion, but to say that a Christ is a Christ, that is to say that Jesus is Lord, is to say the obvious, for within the universe of this instrument, we are identical to that which is termed the Holy Spirit. This conjures up images of angels, harps, and clouds. These scenes occur only within your thought worlds and are created by your thoughts, not those of the one infinite creator. These passages that I'm putting in blue font are ones that I think are kind of worth noting to put the rest of this part in context. They go on after that and say, we are then the Holy Spirit or Comforter in this instrument's terms. We have appeared as many, many things, including angels. We appear in thought alone at this time and find that the mass of those who would seek our information prefer the, as this instrument would say, mythology of the spacecraft and the visitors from elsewhere to the equally valid manifestation and thought of the angels or the vision. Were we to appear as ourselves, those of the Confederation would look most variously, and we feel our impact upon your people is more proof against abuse of free will by our speaking through instruments such as this one and using the most desired metaphors and images concerning our inner nature and function in order that we may aid the most entities. It matters not who entities think we are. We attempt to satisfy the need for otherness, mystery, and solemnity, and to indicate our polarity in a clear way. After that, our dependence is upon the relationship we may forge with a carefully tuned instrument, and in that way, by collaboration, we offer what humble gifts we have. There is a third nature which shall disturb this instrument, although it has been intellectually considering this possibility for some time and has discussed it. Yet it will be sorry to hear from this contact that, in our opinion, we are completely within the instrument's mind. That is, we are allowed to speak because the instrument has made a pathway deeply enough into its own subconscious levels of thought that it is able to contact principles which lie deep within the mind and are influenced by the various energies of gravity in a spiritual sense, which flow rhythmically through the metaphysical portion of each individual as well as the physiological portion. The study of the latter is called astrology. The study of the former could be called metaphysical astrology, and would reveal an inner universe of which the outer infinity of galaxies is but a hologram which moves in a predictable fashion. This instrument, therefore, may identify us with itself in the deepest reality of which we are aware. The infinity and reality lie not outside, but inside the non-thing, which is each entity's consciousness. All studies concerning an entity are studies in a mirror, the true self, the inner self being invisible. One learns of the inner self by looking very carefully in the mirror. I apologize to everyone for reading so much through this. I hope I did not lose anybody through this. I just thought it worth exploring because the implication here, if I'm understanding this correctly, is that this whole idea that Quo is from some other planet is really just a metaphor that they used because, as they said, people seem to be caught up with this mythology of spacecraft and visitors from elsewhere, but they could just as easily appear to us as angels, and it would be just as true. And the suggestion there, this thing, is that they're really just deep in Carla's mind or in the mind of the channel. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Austin, as well as Gary and Trish. I think it's a beautiful session with really profound implications and meanings, both for you as channel, as well as for us in learning. Would you care to share your response to Jim, Austin?
Yeah, absolutely. It is kind of long, so if I read it, it'll take up a bit of space. And before I read it, I just want to emphasize that channeling is a mysterious thing, I think. This session is proof of that. Like what a Quo is saying here already inside the session itself is kind of weird. They talk about having different aspects of themselves, but then the last one kind of contradicts the first one. And in this session in particular, that's interesting because I've never seen that happen in a Quo session before, where Quo goes through these sort of things and then sort of immediately turns things around and contradicts what they just said, because they're talking about the ways that they are of the Confederation, how that presents itself in what they describe as very real ways of being citizens of planets. But then they end that with saying, no, we're in Carla's mind, which is, very puzzling. I know Jim was very confused by it, and I just want to emphasize that Jim's reaction is something that I would say is my primary reaction is we don't know. Jim doesn't know. I don't know. Something mysterious is happening in channeling and life in general, and we don't want to necessarily present ourselves as having the firm answers of exactly what's happening here. But I have thoughts that go into what is channeling, the mechanics of channeling, why Quo might say this, and how it might be reconciled with what I believe is still the likely truth of channeling, is that it's telepathic contact with, extraterrestrial entities as they present themselves in this context. So yeah, to build off of that, what I wrote to Jim is and this is to Jim. So when I say you, I'm talking to Jim specifically. My own belief about channeling is that it is probably as it's presented. Extraterrestrial entities are using the process of telepathic communication to share thoughts and words with us. But I also would not be surprised if the total truth of channeling were more complicated, or perhaps just a bit different than that. There is always the possibility that when we connect with something in channeling, though they present themselves as a particular entity with particular identities, there is something more mysterious and less definite about what we are connecting with. I think the only thing that we can say with 100% certainty is that something is definitely happening with channeling, which I think is something that we can attest to, Carla, Jim, me, Gary, Trish, having the experience. There is absolutely something happening with channeling, but there's still something outside of the realm of verification. It's not a scientific process. We can't measure exactly what Kuo is with any instrument besides our own experiences, right? So something is happening during channeling, and to reiterate, I think the biggest probability is as it presents itself in Carla's channeling, particularly, that it's extraterrestrial entities. So then I go on and I say, I sometimes wonder if the entities that are channeled are able to adapt to the instrument's configuration and offer their services based upon the instrument's methods and beliefs about channeling. That perhaps a person can open themselves up to channel and have a specific idea of who or what they are going to connect to, but that thing doesn't actually exist as the instrument thinks that it does. And so another entity, even a positive entity, can kind of step into the role of what that person thinks they're connecting with in order to be of service. And when I say it like that, it can sound like kind of deceitful, like they're not actually who they instrument thinks they are, but I do think from a certain perspective that is possible, that positive entities can join an instrument and sort of create this performance of them channeling something. So a couple more paragraphs. I do think the art of channeling can be different in different contexts, and it is just a matter of tuning into what we are channeling. When Kuo describes themselves as being, quote, completely within the instrument's mind, quote, because the instrument has made a pathway deeply enough into its own subconscious levels of thought that it is able to contact principles which lie deep within the mind and are influenced by various energies of gravity in a spiritual sense, which flow rhythmically through the metaphysical portions of each individual as well as the physiological portion. Those are all Kuo's words. I suspect that they were being direct about the aspect of their nature, and it reveals why they've always presented themselves as the principle of Kuo. They sort of define specifically what they mean when they say they're the principle of Kuo. It's a lot more literal than we've ever taken it. But perhaps the contact with Kuo was primarily forged initially, like is being described in this session, in Carla's mind. And by Carla exploring these pathways and touching these principles within her own self. And then perhaps when Jim channeled Kuo at that point, there was this energetic signature of what Carla was channeling. You know, if it was true, it's just in her mind. He was still able to tap into that thought form, essentially, that Carla had generated through her own processes and able to channel that too, because prior to this session, Jim had channeled Kuo multiple times. I think that was one of the puzzling things for Jim when he found this session is if it's true that Kuo is just in Carla's mind, why was he able to channel it? Why have we been able to channel it all this time up to this point? So if it's true that Kuo at that point was just in Carla's mind and Jim, I still think Jim would have been able to tap into that in some way. So almost done. In the process of channeling, I think that both you, Jim, and Carla had at least some belief that you were channeling a Confederation entity. It could be the function of imagination that filled in the details about those entities, as Kuo did describe himself in very specific ways earlier in that transcript as being part of the Confederation. Or perhaps in channeling these deep principles in her own mind, there was still room for influence from the Confederation entities that suggested certain ideas that could come through in that contact. So even though if it were in Carla's mind, there's still some way for the Confederation to move through that in a certain way. Either way, I do think that Carla and you, Jim, believing in channeling Confederation entities leaves an opening for those Confederation entities to join into the channeling of Kuo eventually. As you found in the next session, I don't know if you saw this, Jonathan, but the session after this one, they channeled Kuo again, but they specifically said, and they're joined by Latwii. So that would be the first instance of Kuo identifying an aspect of the Confederation joining with them. And so in that next session, Kuo was joined by Latui. My best guess is that the energies of Kuo were explored and crystallized, and then Hatan, Latui, and Ra were able to resonate with those principles that Carla had sort of forged in her mind. And that's when I pointed out the beginner, intermediate, and advanced when she sort of forged those. And then they were able to resonate with that and step into the space that Carla and Kuo had initially created. Thus, Kuo was perhaps initially forged primarily in the way that is described in this puzzling part in Carla's mind, but later contained the entities that we are more familiar with because that's just what the process of channeling allows for. So I don't know how much sense that makes. It might be just us trying to make things make sense when it's all just this mysterious world. But that is my best guess as to how to reconcile what we just read with what we believe about channeling.
That's beautiful. No, everything you said makes sense. And I'm looking forward to going back and watching this video again so I can listen to it all and mull it all over. Mimi, you had a follow-up question wanted to ask?
Was more of a comment, but yeah, I really like what you said, Austin. And when you think about archetypes, these are areas of consciousness we all tap into. Why not extraterrestrial entities or angels or however you want to label them? We're all connected. We're all one. And I started out by studying Jane Roberts, The Nature of Reality. And they talk about consciousness being able to be grouped and regrouped infinitely. So identity is a slippery thing, and why not pour it into different vessels?
Well said. Thank you.
I resonate with that, yeah.
Gary, Trish, any thoughts, reflections to share on this?
This is the first I was hearing of Austin's thoughts on the matter, and I appreciate and agree with what he said. And I haven't given this question really much thought at all beyond a brief conversation that I had had with Austin when he shared how Jim was puzzled by this. And my response at the time is still my approach now to the question when I consider it. And it's simpler. And I think it harmonizes with what was said in that session. I have a difficult time really absorbing all the words that you were reading, Jonathan, and that Austin was reading. It would be much easier for me to have them in print, in written word in front of me. But what I was able to assimilate into my brain harmonizes, I think, to some degree with my initial rudimentary thoughts on this question. And that's that if you look at the structure of the mind complex, as Ra describes it multiple times, they use the metaphor of a tree. And they indicate that that which grows above the ground, essentially, in the metaphor of the tree of the mind, is at the trunk is the intuition that channels or feeds information from the subconscious layers below the ground upward into the crown, into the branches, into the feeling and mental complexes that is the conscious portion of the mind. But if you travel downward through the trunk of the mind and through the intuition, and you get below the ground, you enter the subconscious mind that has its own strata. The further down one travels into the roots of mind, below ground, the more collective that mind becomes. So that at the upper layers of those roots, you begin with just the individual subconscious mind, the individual's personal biography and multi-incarnational journey, and the things forgotten, the things repressed, the pre-incarnational programming, just unique to that individual. You travel down further into the ground, as it were, into the subconscious mind, and you reach the racial or planetary mind. It's a discussion for another day, but the mind that is shared with everybody on the planet. Everybody on this call, we all have the same planetary mind, which is mysteriously also connected with Gaia herself. Travel a layer downward further, and you reach the logoic mind, our sun's mind, which is called the archetypical mind. So every planetary peoples within the influence of a particular sublogos. So that would be us. That would be Ra on Venus. That would be the Mars, the third density group on Mars and Maldek. We all share the same archetypal mind. That's the mind of the logos. And there is yet another layer deeper, and that's the cosmic mind or the all mind. One might say that's the mind of God. It's the mind of the universe, the mind of the primal logos. I know there's various ways to describe that. But it is the all mind. I think Ra does say, maybe say all mind. They do say cosmic mind. So from that perspective, everything is within the container of that cosmic mind, and that's our basement level. Everybody on this call, everybody on this planet, everybody in the Andromeda galaxy, and in every galaxy that ever was or ever will be, shares that same deep foundational layer of mind. So therefore, everything that transpires on the stage of creation happens within our own minds, so to speak. And, this is reflected in session 1 when Ra describes that there is no material universe. We are just dancing thoughts in a ballroom. I forget exactly how they said it, but probably everybody will.
I'm glad you brought it up. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's what Ra said, the very first thing. You are not part of a material universe. You are part of a thought. You are dancing in a ballroom in which there is no material. You are dancing thoughts. Everything is mind.
Thank you. Yeah, much better verbatim and read there. We are all dancing thoughts in the mind of the creator. So in the world of manifestation and manyness and relativity, there are these various space-time ratios, these roles, these character roles we play on a stage. Some entities may be from this planet, some entities may be from this density, some entities may come together in this group, etc. But ultimately, we're all just these projections of light and shadow onto the all-mind screen of the creator. And one final quick thought in that regard. It's gone. The shadow evidence.
It's a lot to process, no doubt about it. No, I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on it. And that's pretty much the take I had on this as well. Go ahead.
Quickly, it came to me. Ra attempted a couple jokes in air quotes a couple times when Don was like, well, what is the source of this entity? Where do they come from or something? And Ra's like, they come from the creator, as all entities do. And, Don is asking about a close encounter, and Ra says, well, what could there be but a close encounter? Or not all encounters close, because it's the creator meeting the creator. It's something of that nature. So again, this just reinforces that perspective that I was describing, that it's all ultimately the creator meeting the creator, just seeming to appear as these different entities at different stages of the evolutionary ladder. But thanks for that.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And I appreciate your going through the process of trying to figure this out without the benefit of having it like in print in front of me. I've had weeks to prepare for this conversation, so I've taken quite a bit of notes on this, and I've thought quite a bit about how to process thoughts on it. So I appreciate your doing it on the spur of the moment. Trish, did you have anything to add? Any of your own thoughts, perspectives on it?
I guess just a quick one, and it's a little bit more grounded in the illusory experience of this. And I think Andy might have commented about this, about like, does it matter if it's in our mind, if it's helpful? And I think that's kind of something I've taken away from this question, is like, ultimately, this illusory experience is highly fragmented and projected. Like you said, it's the creator and this multiple unique extensions of itself. But like, ultimately, what's at the core of whatever is coming through us, however you want to define it, if you want to define it as quo or within our mind, like, so long as what the message is still, you know, at its foundation about love, and it doesn't bring up fear, and it doesn't instill, you know, judgment. It's that, to me, feels what's ultimately important. I don't need to put, you know, this name or ID on it, because the truth that exists within it feels more powerful than assigning it as, you know, this is the work of this and this is the work of that. I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. I agree 100%. I think, yeah, I appreciate the context that you all have put on this, and I think it would be easy to look at that passage or this session at face value and say, oh, well, wait, so what's the point of all of this stuff again? If they're not from another planet, then what's the point of this? But no, I mean, as Gary pointed out, I think it goes back to what Ross said from the very beginning, which is that it's all mind. We're all dancing thoughts. And if Carla was, and anyone who channels is able to go deep, 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 deep enough into their subconscious to tap into the universal mind, then yeah, that makes perfect sense, that everything is in your mind, because everything is an illusion, everything is thoughts. If, as our friends in the Confederation have said more than a few times, we're all basically brain cells in a cosmic mind, and if each brain cell digs deep enough, it's going to find that we're all connected, we're all one mind, and you end up looking at yourself eventually, because it's all the same. So yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing. I have found this to be an immensely inspirational, beautiful session, and I think it just puts the work that you're doing as channels in even more of a fascinating, beautiful light, and looking at what you're doing and producing these thoughts from some aspect of the cosmic mind that may manifest to us as another planet or something. Have you seen the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, based on the Carl Sagan book? That's the thing that comes to me often. For folks who haven't seen it, it's a movie based on a Carl Sagan book about our, you know, fictional first contact with extraterrestrial entities. And when Jodie Foster makes contact, they appear to her as her father, who she had a very loving, dear relationship with. And they said, we manifested in this form because this was the way we thought you could best relate to us. And if this is how the cosmic mind is, the creator is able to manifest to us in a way that satisfies that need for otherness and mystery and solemnity, then that's great. But in the end, like you said, Trish, it really doesn't matter. It's the message that matters more than anything. It's about love. So appreciate the taking the time to do that, and thank you for everyone who stuck with us through this. Gary, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I did. I was looking for the raise hand button. I don't know where it is. Yeah, a few things have come up for me, and it's funny that you said contact because I had a movie that comes up for me too. And 3 points I want to speak to. One is that I think, you know, truth also in quotes still matters. For we in the relative world, we have to use our sense-making brains, because just as it's possible to make sense and have coherency and draw meaning, it's also possible, and we see it every day in our world, particularly in our political field, it's possible to be incoherent, to be deceptive, to be nonsensical, and then just to try to make nonsense make sense without coherency, without internal consistency. So the effort to understand and make meaning is still important, as it is in this case. Point 2, that is that to what degree conscious channeling is the external entity speaking is a big question mark for me. This ratio comes down to us from past channelings in the 70s, 80s, maybe 90s, I don't know, where they had asked, well, what percentage is the instrument and what percentage is the source? And the ratio that came through was 30-70. 30% is the instrument, 70% is the source. Like, that's what the source prefers. In my own experience of serving as an instrument myself, and in my years of attending channelings, my first channeling was in 2002, 2001, 2. And once I moved in with Carla and Jim in 2003, I had attended virtually every session since then. So Carla stopped channeling in 2011. So I had the benefit of 8 consecutive years of Carla channeling, who's, you know, the master as far as I'm concerned, at the top of Olympus, which is extraordinary and unparalleled. Nevertheless, I saw a lot of Carla in the channeling. I mean, if you compared the channeling of our generation, including Jim, to Carla's channeling, you don't really see Jesus come up so much in our channeling, but Jesus had a recurring guest star appearance, and yeah, he made lots of cameos in Carla's channeling, and because that's, you know, that was the source using the notes that that particular instrument played really well, because Carla had a deep personal, intimate relationship with Jesus, and so I think, I don't know that I agree with that ratio. I think the instrument is more present than the 30-70 ratio, and sometimes it kind of feel like, if you can picture, you know, somebody bench pressing at a gym, and they're just like at the cusp of what they can press, and so somebody else comes along and gives them an assist with that weight. I sometimes think, I wonder if the ratio is close to that, if the source is a little bit more of an assist, you know, helping the instrument to share, which is why I've always related to conscious channeling as something that is more inspirational than it is informational. You know, in that ratio between inspiration and information, conscious channeling tends to be, you know, it inspires will and faith, and inspires me to open my heart and to practice forgiveness and to provide principles that are orienting for my compass. Whereas I look to Ra, and I'm, you know, it's each Q&A, you're getting profound, accurate, precise information left and right. And even with Carla, I would walk away from channelings feeling that part of me that wanted, you know, hard, precise, profound information. I'd feel dissatisfied at times. Like, I asked this question and I really it didn't hit where I needed it to. And, you know, this is Carla channeling. And point 3 is that the movie Interstellar. Have you seen that, Jonathan?
Yeah, for sure. Don't understand it, but I've seen it at least a few times. Yeah.
We don't always understand Christopher Nolan.
No, for sure.
I go watch that movie every year. It's fantastic. So, you know, throughout the Matthew McConaughey's and his daughter's journey, they develop the sense that they're interacting with something other than themselves. You know, this Morse code is being sent by knocking the books off the shelf and messing with the dust in the right configuration. And you know, this is a spoiler alert. If anybody hasn't seen it, please fast forward a few minutes. So at the end, when McConaughey, I forget Murphy's his daughter, enters the black hole, as it were, and is then in this other dimensional space, and he's being interacted with in these visually psychedelic sort of ways, these kind of like bands of reality. And he's taken back to the bookshelf scene, and he's able to connect with Murphy because love seems, and that's why I love about this movie as well, that love is upheld not as this emotional epiphenomena of the human experience, but love is like this property of reality that's on par with gravity, or maybe even more important than space and time itself. So it allows this interdimensional connecting between where Matthew McConaughey is and where his daughter is, and back in space-time somewhere. Anyway, there's this epiphany that the guidance that they've been getting along the way isn't necessarily from an external entity, but it's themselves. But not like humanity as humanity 500 years hence or something, but something even greater, something more mysterious, something that connects to the mystery of it all. And it's speaking back to itself, speaking back to humanity. So that could offer another lens to think about that. And I should not speak for the rest of the Zoom call because I took all the
It's
oxygen.
really difficult stuff to unpack. I
Yeah.
thought I knew what I was talking about, but every time I start trying to follow a train of thought, it starts going all over the place. But no, I appreciate you bringing up Interstellar. That is also a great example. And something you were saying earlier reminded me of how much I appreciate the disclaimer that happens at the beginning of almost every channeling session, which is take whatever you hear us say that resonates with you with truth, and anything that doesn't, just let it go. And I think that's a great comfort to all of us in looking at any channeling transcript, that we kind of all have to use our own discretion at whatever we hear, whatever we read on the screen that makes sense. And if there's anything that just doesn't make sense to you, then don't blame it on the channel. Just let it go. It's not for you. That's okay. Let someone else deal with that. Austin, did you have anything you wanted to add to this long conversation?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to keep adding to a very long conversation, but I do have, I think, what could be a final thought on my end. And that is, in that session, Kuo specifically references the mythology of angels and the mythology of UFOs, kind of like making sure they're distinct but not distinct. And I think this is a really interesting point. It's even relevant now because we're invested in a lot of ways in the mythology of the spaceship as LL Research, the Confederation of Planets, and that these are extraterrestrials. And I think what both Gary and Trish said are really poignant thoughts on, unpacking that and the idea of identity of these things. And I do think that, if you look into it, you could discover that's true, but there might be something more true than that. Something beyond that, that's sort of Gary was referencing. And I think it's a really interesting sort of current event kind of thing, because in the recent sort of focus on UFOs, there is this unpacking within religious studies specifically about kind of exactly what Kuo said, this mythology of angels and the mythology of UFOs. And it's not that we can look at historical accounts of angels and say those were just UFOs. It's not that we can look at UFOs and say these are just angels, but there is something else at play here that is breaking through. And it's a lot like what Gary was talking about. There is something breaking through for us, and the way that all of us here, are resonating with it is really important. And it's the most important part. I do think it's at least interesting, but also probably important for us to continue wondering what it is and trying to figure out what it is. But like Trish was saying, that thing that we're resonating with is not that they are aliens in spaceships. And at least for the most part, that's not what we're resonating with. So I want to emphasize that important aspect.
I appreciate bringing that up. I know you were speaking about that in the Q&A with the Law of One Europe group yesterday too. And I think that's something on a lot of people's minds, the whole disclosure and UFO stuff and everything. And I think this is a great context to put that in. Trish, did you have any last thoughts before we wrap up this discussion and go on to the next question?
No, I'm just really appreciative. I feel like I'm hearing new things from both Austin, you, and Gary yourself. So I'm just appreciative.
I appreciate your being here, being willing to have the conversation. I know Kuo said somewhere farther in the session that I didn't actually get to. They basically said, we apologize to the channel for saying something that could be very disturbing to her, but she did it. That's great. I think we're running a little bit over time here. I hope you guys don't mind spending a little bit extra time with us today. We will try to wrap this up in due course. But I do know there were at least a couple questions in the chat window. I know Mimi had a question. I know Aram had a question, and that's all I was able to write down because I was like focusing on the on mic conversation. So if anybody else still has a question other than Mimi and Aram, if you wouldn't mind typing it in the chat window again so I can see it down at the bottom, that would be great. Otherwise, I want to make sure that you have a chance to ask. Mimi, would you like to unmute your mic and ask your new
No,
question?
I think I'll pass. I've had plenty of the floor, and I think we should go to Aram's question first.
Are you sure?
Come
Thank
back to me, come back to me if there's time. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. So kind, so thoughtful of others. Aram, would you like to? Aram, crap. She said she might not be able to unmute her mic, so she asked if I could read her question for her. Her question is: are wanderers more likely to have ADHD or autism? Are these disorders maybe a reflection of a dissonance of coming from a different density to Earth? Trish, would you like to field that one first? If not, feel free to pass it to Gary or Austin.
Oh, no, no worries. That's a really good question. As I feel that I fit into all of those cubby holes myself. Didn't we recently have a channeling on the nature of autism?
Yeah, last year somebody had asked, well, Jim was channeling Quo about autism.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think there was anything discovered that was specifically stating that there's a connection there between the diagnosis of autism and wanderhood, but that it is, from what I understand, just a reflection of a more fluid manifestation of the creator, a different way of viewing another individual that doesn't fit into these, compartments as we see human nature trying to fit within in terms of behavior or interactions. And like, I personally wonder too, if there's some correlation between, I don't know, maybe not getting stuck in the 3D egoic identity-based way of life in terms of maybe individuals with autism or ADHD are a little bit more present, potentially. But I cannot speak to that on any kind of like larger scale, obviously. And I would never want my words to be taken as Bible. So please just know that that's just something I've pondered and by no means fact.
Appreciate you sharing that.
I don't want to touch too deeply on it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gary, anything to add?
I don't know how to understand autism. For instance, if we look at allergies, can be viewed to be some kind of rejection of the environmental ambiance, some kind of difficulty integrating with the environment, and deep mental difficulty that is expressed outwardly as allergies. And Ra said that wanderers would definitely be more prone to have allergies because it's an outward manifestation of an inward, so to speak, allergic reaction to the planetary disharmony and difficulty of the illusion itself. So can autism be viewed through a similar lens? Is it a difficulty coping, or is it a more intentional mind complex configuration that yields learning for, of course, the entity who is experiencing this mode called autism, or for those around them? And I'm not sure, but I think there could be a correlation between the two. But yeah, I don't know enough to speak on it too intelligently.
I seem to recall more than a couple sessions where Quo said something to the effect that a lot of whom we refer to as indigo children are entities who did graduate from third density to fourth density, but have been given the honor and privilege of coming back to third density rather than proceeding to fourth density to incarnate on this planet as what they referred to as indigenous species of the fourth density planet to come. which I would take to mean they have a foot in both worlds, in third density and fourth density. And I could easily see how having fourth density vibrations would make it really difficult living in third density Earth. And that might manifest as autism. I don't know.
Quick follow-up, what you just said reminded me that like there's a couple members in the Seattle group who will speak openly about raising autistic children, and that's been a window for me to understand more about this phenomena. And one thing one gets from listening to parents of autistic children is how much more intensive it can be, or how much more demanding, or how they really need to try to meet the child and calibrate their efforts accordingly, and etc. So one could draw a reasonable conclusion that one of the underlying, say, reasons for the experience of this condition is to facilitate exactly that sort of learning, that patience that's needed, the open-heartedness and so forth, that might not be as available with neurotypicality. So thanks.
Well said. Yeah, great way to teach us unconditional love. Susan is reminding us that the term was dual activated. That was the word I was looking for, both third and fourth density. Austin, did you have anything to add to this?
No, I appreciate both their answers.
That's good. Thank you. I know James had a question he wanted to ask about Pleiadians, I believe. James, would you like to unmute and ask your question from the chat window? If you're still there. Are you still there, James? Perhaps not. Elaine, did you have a question you wanted to ask? Elaine, your mic is muted. There you
go. I'll just read what I wrote in the chat. Do you guys have any thoughts on entities who come in with heart defects? I've researched the channelings on this, and there was a little bit that I believe Kuo said that entities or entities with heart defects have trouble opening their hearts, or I'm not sure. I didn't really I couldn't find a lot of information on that. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? No.
I am one such entity. I had a heart defect growing up, called a condition called supraventricular tachycardia, that would cause my heart to go wild, like over 200 beats per minute, without seeming rhyme or reason. And the Cleveland Clinic, I grew up outside of Cleveland, was able to, through radio frequency ablation, correct that situation. But anyway, to your question, Elaine, and good to see you again as well. And also a reminder of why in-person is so much more powerful. Elaine and Joanna at the Coming Home event treated everybody to music with guitars and their vocals, and it was really extra beautiful. Among the gaps of my knowledge, one key area I would really love to understand more is what the underlying mental conditions are for physical maladies and so forth. Because it would just be so healing for our understanding and treatment of disease and pathology and so forth. But it's so lacking in me. One resource that I'm aware of is Louise Hay's work. Are you familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Like, she has a kind of a whole encyclopedia of, if you're having migraines, then this is the underlying cause. How accurate that is, I'm not sure. But your supposition about difficulty opening the heart, I think, could be very accurate, as could other theories. I wish I could mine that more, maybe even to come up with alternative theories, but I'm hitting a mental wall myself.
Could I just follow that up? I realized that this lifelong heart ailment, which actually runs throughout my entire family, although it's not congenital, but we all have it. I finally figured out or realized that I believe it was a pre-incarnative choice to come in with this in our group, our family group, and the lesson from it I've discovered was to learn forgiveness. We had so much catalyst around all of this. And I just always thought it was just so interesting that we all had this heart ailment that is, again, not congenital. And we're actually, myself and two of my siblings were part of a study for this. But I've reconciled it that it was meant to teach me forgiveness in this incarnation. So, but it is a really interesting topic for me. You know, I'd like to know more about it.
Upon this realization of the connection between, excuse me, forgiveness and the heart condition, did you find any kind of physical healing?
No, it's ongoing, you know, and yeah, so it's like that's why I've been researching it. Like, does Kuo have anything to say about this? And there was a little bit that I could find, but there's so much content about opening the heart and all of that that I couldn't make a connection between a physical heart ailment and the metaphysical concepts or thoughts behind it that Kuo might have shared. And I didn't really see any questions either in the channelings, but then again, there's so much there. You know, I'll continue to research it, but it's something that I think about, you know. Although
You strike
I
me as a
must
very
say,
open-hearted person, Elaine. You do not strike me as anyone
well,
who has problems
I was
opening.
actually kind of worried.
Yeah, I'm not
Oh
personally
no.
not seeing a connection, but
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would second that, and not as an empty compliment. I mean, we all have different energetic fields, and yours definitely radiates strongly green,
Oh,
insofar as I can
oh.
perceive anything. And an alternative theory may have, you know, the heart condition may be related to pain held in the heart. Maybe not so much judgment of others, but just the pain of the lack of compassion that one sees in the world. So that could be one thing you consider. And also a final quick thought, and that's that my understanding of healing also on an energetic mental level is that one can successfully heal root causes and not necessarily see that outworked in the body itself. The bodily condition may persist, but the more important level of healing has taken place as well. That's all.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And Kuo does say the physical does not heal without the metaphysical healing, of course. And I just, then I'll be done. I did heal decades of migraines through meditation. And that was the first time. That was maybe maybe 5-6 years ago, out of pure desperation. And at the time I was reading A Course in Miracles, and one of the daily lessons was there's no such thing as pain. And I was like, okay, and started meditating on that, and it was a miracle, really, because they were so debilitating, and I haven't had a migraine since. So yeah. Thanks, you guys. It's so wonderful to see you, by the way.
Yeah.
beautiful, Sharon. Thank you for doing that, Elaine. We are running more than a little bit over time. And again, I really wanted to thank Gary and Trish and Austin for giving of your time so much this way. If it's okay with you, I believe we're at the end of the questions in the chat window, and I would like to go ahead and wrap things up. And as you know, of course, we did invite you here not just for questions and answers, but also for a bit of a pop quiz. As I'm sure you're all familiar with, pop quiz was a term that Carla used to refer to the unexpected catalyst that we often get to see how well we have learned the lessons that we came here to learn. Today, Gary, Trish, and Austin, I'm going to ask you 3 multiple choice questions to test your knowledge of pop culture, just to add a little bit of levity and laughter to our otherwise serious discussions about metaphysics.
Oh, this is your game.
As you all know, yes, our friends in the Confederation have spoken more than a few times about the importance of a sense of humor and spiritual growth, and Latwii is notorious for their cosmic sense of humor. I believe Gary at one time referred to Latwii as the sexiest of the 3 social memory complexes that make up Quo. If Gary doesn't remember that, I do remember that comment.
I'm capable of saying that, but yeah.
It made me laugh before, and it still makes me laugh now. So anyway, yes, going to ask you a few questions. And folks who are on Zoom, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat window if you want to play along. Folks on YouTube, or whoever on YouTube is still watching at this point, you are welcome to say your answers out loud as well. Otherwise, yes, Gary, Trish, and Austin, you obviously know more than a little bit about the one infinite creator, but how much do you know about the enigmatic Grammy-winning hip-hop artist known as Tyler, the Creator? That's what we're going to find out today. Are any of the 3 of you familiar with Tyler, the Creator at all?
A little bit.
No.
A little bit.
A little bit. Oh, good, good. Do any of you listen to hip hop music at all?
A little bit.
Ah, wow, excellent, good. Well, we're trying to help you win over some of the younger demographic over to L&L Research. So this will hopefully give you a little bit more street cred with the kids, as we call them. So if you are ready to begin, here is your first question. And your first question is, where was Tyler, the Creator, born? Was it A, Yonkers, New York, B, Hawthorne, California, or C, Lithia Springs, Georgia? You can go ahead and say your answers out loud.
B.
A.
I'll split the difference and say C.
Excellent. The correct answer is, in fact, B, Hawthorne, California. Yonkers is the title of a popular song by Tyler, the Creator. As far as I can tell, it has nothing to do with the city in New York, which I believe is part of the Bronx. Lithia Springs is, in fact, the birthplace of Lil Nas X, another somewhat enigmatic Grammy-winning hip-hop artist. Hawthorne is about a 15-minute drive from Compton, California, home to many famous rappers, including Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar, Ice Cube, and more. Where, as long as we're on the subject, where were each of the 3 of you born, starting with Austin? Where were you born?
It's a town called Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Is that near Santa Fe?
No, not really. It's more in southern central New Mexico, near the White Sands Monument, White Sands Missile Range. If anybody's familiar with that, it's kind of near the Trinity test site as well.
Oh, interesting. Trish, where were you born?
A little place probably no one's heard of. Louisville, Kentucky.
Never heard of it. I'll look it up. Gary?
Outside the great city of Cleveland, Ohio.
Interesting. Wow, so one of you is in fact a Louisville native. That is very cool. Very cool indeed. Are you ready for your next question? Let's try this. I'm not keeping score. Folks at home, you're going to have to keep score. Your next question. Which of the following is the name of a song by Tyler, the Creator? Is it A, I Think, B, I Am, C, I Think I Am, E, I Think Therefore I Am, or E, I Am the Creator?
E would be keeping with his name, but I'm going to go with B.
I think it's B as well.
Excellent. Trish?
C.
Good guesses, indeed. In fact, the correct answer is A, I think. I believe I've listened to it once or twice on YouTube. It is a bouncy little tune, more about love than philosophy, as far as I can tell. Has the catchy lyric, I'm off balance, I need some fixin', I'm your puppet, you are Jim Henson. Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Are you ready for your third question?
Yes.
Which of the following is a lyric from a song by Tyler, the Creator? Is it A, and this is where the story and confusion begin, because I was in Nirvana, but I had to pretend that I wasn't? Or is it B, blessings on blessings on blessings, look at my life, man, that's lessons on lessons on lessons? Or is it C, whoa, the universe inside is hard to fathom when composed in a region small as a single atom?
That means you made two of these?
What's that?
That means that you, Jonathan, made two of these?
No, these are all actual rap lyrics from actual rap artists.
Oh, just
One of
one
them
is.
is Tyler, the Creator.
Wow.
My guess would be C.
See.
I'm going with the rhyme too.
Nice. In fact, the correct answer is A.
Damn
A is a
it.
lyric from a song by Tyler, the Creator, called Freaking Young, except he didn't actually use the word freaking. Lyric B is actually from a song Blessings by Detroit rapper Big Sean. And lyric C is actually from the Big Bang Rap by GZA from his album Dark Matter. GZA is, of course, I'm sure you know, one of the founding members of the Wu-Tang Clan, and has been a guest on astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk radio show.
Wow.
While we're on the subject of songs, I've been meaning to ask you guys at some point, what kind of songs have you been using for your CC channeling circles? Like, when was the last time you had one? I haven't been keeping track. Have you channeled recently, the CC group?
Do you know LMFAO's Party Rock Anthem? That's our go-to usually.
Great for tuning, huh?
Yeah, it gets us in the mood.
Austin, you had the last tuning song.
Yeah, the last one I chose, it was actually a song from Lady Black Mambazo. They're a group from like a sort of a gospel a cappella group from South Africa, and it was it's about God. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a song about God. It's I had a spiritual experience listening to it, so I brought it to the channeling circles.
That's so cool. Do you use different songs all the time? I seem to remember Jim saying at some point that for the channelings at his place, there's really a small number of songs in the rotation that generally use over and over. Do you guys have a few songs that you use on rotation, or do you mix it up with a lot of different songs?
I think when we do our little small CC circle, we try to each person do one like in a round. So this session was Austin's. The next one will be either Gary or mine. And I don't think we have limits on what to share. Like Gary and I have a shared tuning playlist on Spotify that's quite long. So
Yeah.
That is so fascinating to me. I mean, if as a channel, you have to get into that deepest part of your subconscious, I have no idea what kind of music would do that other than something I would think with a really hypnotic, trance-inducing rhythm or something. But it sounds like the songs you choose are really kind of ordinary, mundane, secular songs. Do you have a favorite tuning song, Trish, that you like to use? Or any favorites?
I like favorite genres. I really like folksy indie kind of music, and strangely usually with a male falsetto voice that can kind of get me feeling trancy. But they're usually the message is usually kind of sad. They're like heartbreak songs, but yeah, I think something about the tone of a male falsetto voice mixed with like ethereal kind of backing music is it causes me to get a little bit inward and contemplative.
Bon Iver, Novo Amor.
Mhm.
You were listening to that cover of that Steve Winwood Higher Love
Yeah.
song for a while.
Mhm. Yeah, that one was really good.
Any of the songs we choose, if they have lyrics in them, which is usually the case, they'll be of an inspiring nature
Mhm.
about spirit, about love, about harmony, and so forth.
Mhm.
Do you have any favorite tuning songs, Gary, that you like to use for the CC channels?
I do. They're not coming to me right now, but I just was looking up the recent most one I chose, and I listened to it while having a mushroom experience, actually. And it really, whether because of my state or something inherent in the song itself, like I just got this really intense sense of that I was hearing this new consciousness being born on the planet. And it's a weird, quirky song from, I think they've got to be a Scandinavian band. I haven't been able to track them down. They're called Flowers of the Forest. And the song is Prayer Song that Mose, Mose, does a remix of. Joanna introduced me to Mose, and he is awesome. Anyway, it's like this song where it's got this rhythmic chanting indigenous sort of quality with overlaid with modern beats, and it's just declarative. They're saying like we are of the forest and the earth and the sky and the river, and we're here, and this is the new way. Like that's the way it was impacting me. So I chose that as my last tuning song.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Well, great song for a mushroom experience for sure. Would you mind elaborating a little on that, since I'm guessing that's kind of news for most people watching this right now?
Well, the portobellos were the
I thought you were more of a cremini kind of guy, but okay.
when combined with pineapple over a pizza. Yeah, I've been undergoing I've had a couple macro dose experiences for the purpose of healing, particularly around my addictive patterns with nicotine and alcohol to some degree. And quick update on that front, because Jonathan, we've had these conversations before. I'm like, this is day like 19 or 20 without that devil, without the vape so far. So I'm going strong.
Good for you. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, and I know what you asked to be able to, at the beginning of our session, to make your usual disclaimer about you guys not being great authorities and that you're just the same as everybody else. And yeah, I did want to give you a chance to elaborate on that if you want to, and to remind folks that, yeah, I mean, having gotten to know Trish and Gary and Austin as well as I have in the last couple of years, they're just beautiful people. But yeah, they're like everyone else. They're struggling with the same kind of catalyst as everybody else, and have the same quirks and foibles and stuff as everybody else. And really appreciate your openness and being able to share that and know that we all love you and we all support you, just as we hope you love us and support us as we go through our own little challenges and catalysts as well. Gary, was there anything you wanted to add on the subject of the disclaimer that I'm not sure if we ever got around to making this session?
No, I got a little like the first question. I didn't say it as the no, just thank you so much for the opportunity of that, Jonathan, and saying that. And yeah, we are on this call because of our position at LL Research. That does add some uniqueness to these three humans, but otherwise our study of the law of one isn't more advanced than anybody else's. Our practice and embodiment of spiritual principles isn't any more advanced. We learn from everybody else as much as we learn from our own studies. So whatever we have said here today, we would definitely and meaningfully ask that you use it as a springboard for your own contemplation. If something we said resonates, then that's your signal back. If something we said made no sense, hopefully it wasn't nonsensical, but if something we said you were in disagreement with, then use that disagreement, because that's what you need to pursue. We're definitely not authorities, but I doubt anybody is making that mistake on this call. But just in case, it's good to clarify. And thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here and giving your time. We are going to go ahead and wrap it up. Trish, Austin, do you have any closing thoughts, reflections you wanted to share before we part ways for this time?
Just love and gratitude for everybody here. Thank you so much for inviting us here and sharing this with us. It's a really such an honor to be with you all. And we do love you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jonathan, for continuing to get these set up. And these pop quizzes this is the second time we've done one, and they're so fun. I realize how little I know about Tyler, the creator. So that's
Yeah.
I've been following his career very closely for the hour it took me to write up this pop quiz. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the creativity that you just embody when you do these sessions. And as always, appreciative of everyone showing up and having their own questions, because they inspire us too to think about things that maybe we hadn't thought about previously or contemplated ourselves. So just gratitude. Thank you all.
Indeed. Gary, any last thoughts, reflections?
No, I just want to give thanks to Joshua's beard for being here with us today.
Josh's beard deserves its own podcast.
No, you guys are all wonderful, and we've seen you on calls before, we've seen you in person before, and you're all friends of our hearts. So thanks for sharing this time for the specific purpose of sharing our spiritual seeking and study, and bonus, learning more about Tyler, the creator. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for being here. I will probably, hopefully, have another one written up for you next time we do this 3 months, 4 months from now. Otherwise, thank you so much for all you have done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you to all our friends at L&L Research for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. Thank you for all joining us on this Zoomcast, for all you've done and continue to do in service to others, and for everyone who, for the both of you who are watching this on YouTube still, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Until next time, in the love of one infinite creator. Adonai, namaste.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Happy
Love
winter.
you all.
Happy New Year's, winter solstice.
I don't know.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Love y'all.